Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel where I talk about books. Today I thought I'd do another very small book haul. Um, I've been out the house a couple of times and books have inevitably found their way back in with me. All I've done is walk down the high street, or we had coffee, tea in Withington round the corner, and yeah, books appeared. What first? Let's see. First of all, I went down the high street the other day furious about something. I'd had a really good day working in my study, and then uh, irksome emails. I, I'd been hideously patronized by somebody by email. Unbelievable. Anyway, I it was sunny, so off I went to walk down the high street, and I ended up in the one charity shop that we've got in Levenshulme. It's weird, we've only got one, and I bought books because why not? And they were just inevitable. A beautiful copy uh, of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou in hardback, just from a few years ago. Really lovely unread copy. Sadly, with the Amazon note inside from someone called Sarah, who was giving it to Craig for his birthday, who clearly didn't read it. Bad Craig, whoever you are. I first had a copy of this in 1986, and it was the Virago paperback of the time, and it's still here somewhere, or a similar copy that I rebought. We chose to do it as a group. We were a very small A-level English class, 6 or 7 of us, and because of the wonderful exam board that our school was with for English, we got to choose all sorts of things ourselves, and we got to choose our own non-fiction book for the course. And collectively, we chose Maya Angelou, who wasn't as well known then in this country as she obviously is now. And so we had a fantastic time working on this. We chose to do all sorts of things, lots of coursework, lots of more contemporary novels. I think then we chose Margaret Atwood. It was interesting. Soon afterwards, it all went backwards, and lots of rote learning. I remember people telling me that just years afterwards, students didn't even read a whole book during courses like that. A lot less self-directed, more exam-based. The world went to shit. God, this is a bit of a rant coming out. Um, I think we're all the poorer for it. One of the things that we were taught to do was to question authority. This is as kids at school. Always question authority. Always ask questions. Always ask who is setting the tests. And where possible, set your own exam questions, set your own essay questions, and that's a lesson for life. That will do you well for the rest of your life, and that's what we were taught. And that's the message of something like Maya Angelou as well. Take control of your life. Don't just um, don't just take what they give you. Anyway, that was a real turning point for me, realizing that you could actually choose your own set texts, and that the world should allow you to do that. Right, another wonderful non-fiction that I already had, James Herriot's first couple of novels, bound up a couple of years ago by Pan, really nicely actually. And it's not an anthology with tiny, tiny print, which is always the mistake they often make. I've got the old Pan paperbacks of these with the Thelwell cartoons on that everybody had in the 70s, and everybody's parents' shelves had on, alongside the James Herberts and the Catherine Cooksons and the Jackie Collins. And I dipped into these when I was a kid. I read them as a teen. I reread them, and uh, I think I might be ready to read them again. I love the anthologies they did, picking out the bits about cats or the bits about dogs as well. I think James Herriot is a lovely writer. Also, in this Children's Society charity shop, they had the largest number of Mills and Boon novels I've ever seen, and they were all pristine, as if they'd come out of um, a warehouse where they'd been forever. Very, very odd. And some of them have the 70s and 60s covers. I think they're reprints, maybe for abroad. No, that's UK prices on, so they're very odd. Loads of them. Now, Mills and Boon are classic romances, still going. Um, Apparently quite saucy at times. I've read several over the years. I remember my nana got into them at some point. Now, when I started teaching at Lancaster as a lecturer, when I was doing my PhD, I was the first bloke they allowed to teach a seminar group doing women's writers, quite progressive. And it was a great course. And one of the weeks was teaching, amongst the Jeanette Wintersons and the Angela Carters and the Duchess of Newcastle and all those Aphra Behn, all those kinds of authors. There was a week on Mills and Boon on the idea of romance and deconstructing what heterosexual romance had meant to literature. And everybody was encouraged to go to a charity shop. This is like 92, 93, and buy for 20p or whatever a Mills and Boon romance and collect and read it. And collectively, we would deconstruct them in the seminar. And it was great. We pulled them to pieces. And by the end of it, I said, well, if they're as evil as we all say, let's have a book burning. If that's if that's where all of this tends, this kind of slightly puritanical, evangelical streak, let's do away with this kind of cant, this kind of uh, um, conservative subtext to books. Let's have a book burning. And so we took a tin bin out to the middle of the quad and set fire to all of our Mills and Boon books just to see if they would. And they were all very keen on burning their books, um, which was hysterical. And it was a quad in which all the other seminar rooms looked out into the grass in the middle. So everybody, doing Renaissance studies, doing Victorians, doing modernism, that afternoon on campus, looked out their windows and saw the women's studies group um, burning books, which I still think is very funny and uh, prescient, perhaps. Troublemaking on campus. And this series of Euro romance novels that Mills and Boons did in the early 90s, these are fantastic. They've got maps of the EU and all listing all their current member states as of the early 90s, 92, um, which was a big year for the EU. And I remember on campus, it was all about, get yourself a second, third language, do business studies, live anywhere abroad. The world had opened out. It was a very utopian time. And this series, this split off from Mills and Boon, are about romances in different countries. This one's Denmark. Viking Magic by Angela Wells. This one is Yesterday's Affair, and it's set at Stonehenge, so that's the British one. And it's about people shagging foreigners, basically. Brilliant. Happy days. I keep being nostalgic for the 90s, and this is the reason why. This kind of thing. Cookery books fell off the shelf into my hands this time as well. And there's a book from, wow, I can't even see that. 98, Nigel Slater. He looks young on the front. It's a really beautifully done cookery book. Fourth Estate, always good. I heartily approve of most of what Fourth Estate has ever published, I think. And everything looks gorgeous. I love cookery books. I love well illustrated cookery books. Look at that. He seems to shove lemons, scorched lemons, in everything he cooks. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to exploring that and cooking. I can't wait for a bit of weather so we can sit outside and feed people around the table. Oh, look at this from the 80s, Sainsbury's. Chocolate Cooking by Rona Newman. Now, 80s Sainsbury's cookery books are something that you have to look out for. They were all very soft focus, very kind of like porno, really, for desserts and things. I used to have, or still have, their vegetarian cookbook, a must for students. We all had that. This I hadn't seen before, this cooking with chocolate business, but it tells you how to make chocolate souffles and chocolate puddings and chocolate mousse and pot au chocolat and French pear flan with chocolate. Everything is just gorgeous. There's even a recipe for chocolate mint ice cream. I shall be doing all of these. I love the fact that the pages are slightly stiff and rippled because people have, there's crumbs down the middle, I think. People have used this, and that's lovely. A used cookery book is a real joy, I think. These cost £1 each, and they're absolute treasure. Margaret Mahy was an Australian children's writer. She wrote for all ages, and I've loved everything that she's done that I've read. I haven't read an awful lot, a handful of books over the years. There's a kind of a feeling that with her that everything I read I've read before. It's like uncovering a story that you already know. It's a very peculiar um, feeling for me reading her stuff. She looks great as well. She was always in rainbow colours. When you saw her in pictures, she seemed like the life and soul of everything. I've nothing to base that on. She just seems it in her work, in the photos, in the bits you see about her. This is a book of her short stories, I think, for younger kids. I read one in the cafe we went to yesterday in Withington. Toast, the cafe is called. I think the thumbnail picture for this has me sitting there, where I just paid £3.50 for a single slice of toast and jam. It was strawberry jam, not raspberry jam as advertised, so I was gutted on all fronts. I was so disappointed. It was a nice place, oddly enough, completely empty, apart from us. Decent cup of tea and nice toast, but ridiculously expensive. But I sat and read the first story, Teddy and the Witches, in this Margaret Mahy book. Once there were 3 witches flying over the world and looking down at it from their broomsticks. One had white hair, one had black hair, one had hair like wild bright flame, and all 3 had golden eyes. They were looking for mischief to do. At last they came to a long green valley which they had never seen before in all their magic lives, and their eyes shone as they looked at the snug as a bug in a rug farms and the soft, smudgy shadows in the creases of the hills. Here, they said to each other, is a wonderful place for some mischief, and they smiled. The first witch pointed her finger. Tweedledee. All the pigs grew silver wings and flew up into the trees with the magpies. The second witch clapped her hands, and all the hens turned into parrots and cockatoos, scarlet and green, white and yellow, and filled the air with their merry screechings. But the third witch, the red-headed one, just blinked her golden eyes, and all the cows became elephants, and elephants eat a lot of grass and are very hard to milk. She's fabulous. You must go and find her books immediately, but not before I do. And then going around Sainsbury's, picking up something to eat, we saw the usual discounted books, the paperbacks and the hardbacks they get. Out of all the hundreds of thousands of books published, they choose maybe 10. They have a panel of experts sat somewhere tapping out, this one's got a nice cover, we'll have this one. That's how they choose. I once had a friend who got chosen for a um, supermarket offer 20 years ago when they were first doing this stuff. And he was cock a hoop, and he went to their sales conference at whatever it was, Tesco's. And the woman took him aside and said, "Don't think it's about the quality of your book. It's because you have a picture of a child on a beach digging sand and making a sandcastle on the front. And that's the only reason we chose you, because we knew we could sell it." Anyway, it's shit. The way they sell books in this country is shit. They've destroyed publishing with their celebrity tossers and their people off the telly and their 3 for 2s and their down to £4 and their we're choosing 10 books out of all the thousands published this week to push the shit out of and make you buy this, make you want it. And you see those books in charity shops stacked high. I call it the 50 Shades of Grey syndrome, where everybody bought it, hardly anybody read it. The ones that did puked and give it away. Anyway, stop going on. I do think publishing is terrible. Once or twice you'll find nice books in the supermarkets, and this looks like a nice one. The Air Raid Book Club by Annie Lyons. It's a saga, it's wartime, it's bookish, and it looks nice. It looks a bit like that. What was that called? The one where they wrote the letters. There was the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, but there's also the one about Mrs. Whatsit and her letters from the magazine. Never quite got on with the sequel, but the first one I loved. Slightly nostalgic. If you can be warmly nostalgic about the Blitz, I guess people can. Anyway, my lights have gone off again, these lights that I fixed up, so I might be in the dark. You might not see me. Right, I've gone on far too long. That was a bit of a catch up on books I've been buying in the last few days. I have got other books on order, so I will probably do a catch up, a book haul again quite soon. And we've got some book shopping coming up in Derbyshire at the weekend, so that will inevitably lead to piles of nonsense ending up on my desk and on my bookshelf. Anyway, press like, do press subscribe, and do leave comments. I'm loving the comments that I'm getting. Okay, goodbye. See you soon.